Bhante, do you ever recall feeling like the defilements in the mind were trying to kill the wholesome qualities, as if the mind was being tracked and hunted nonstop, and the practice must be nonstop? And that maybe therefore the practice must be nonstop.
Surely I have had many times that there were defilements that kill all my practice. But I don't think I have that much now, but still occasionally I get upset, and but as soon as I get to my mindfulness practice, that will go away. Yeah, surely. Another question is there?
Dear Bhante, do enlightened beings only experience neutral feelings?
Enlightened beings experience pain, not pain, not with an underlying tendency of anger, but definitely they have pain. For instance, even the Buddha, Venerable Moggallana and Mahakasyapa and so forth, they were enlightened beings, and yet they had pain. Buddha had, when they were that threw stone at him, and one small splinter hit his foot, and he had terrible pain. So his doctor came and put some medicine, which is supposed to remove the band-aid after a certain time. But when that time came, he could not get into the monastery because monastery gate was closed. That night, Buddha had terrible, terrible pain, and then asked Venerable Ananda to remove the band-aid. So, yes, they have pain, but not the underlying tendency. They have, most of the time, they have a equanimous feeling.
Okay. Bhante, from this morning, you defined existing as arising and falling away, or impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
Does this mean that nibbana does not exist, as there is no arising and falling away, no flux?
Yeah, nibbana just doesn't have all the things that rises and falls. So you cannot find anything in nibbana, and it exists when you attain it for you. When somebody attains it, it exists for him, not in the same sense as a material or mundane thing exists, but it is present in the person who attains it, experience the presence of nibbana. And even the word experience is somewhat misleading, because if you say experience, there must be experiencer, one who experiences it. So it is difficult to explain. Once, as soon as you attain it, since your body exists, feeling, perception, all these exist, they exist. But nibbana exists not in the same sense.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Yes.
Dear Bhante, also about this morning. This morning you talked about morality.
Yeah.
Is morality also considered a relative term defined by social norms and views? Could what is considered moral in one's world be considered immoral in another's world view as perceived by the individual's nama rupas?
Yeah.
A
So,
perennial philosophical question.
yes. Morality is called Aaraya kantha seelaya, noble morality, not regular mundane abstaining from killing and so forth. They go beyond that. That state is a very a pure kind of morality, and not just ordinary mundane type of morality. So it is supramundane type of morality. For instance, abstaining from wrong speech is a thing that ordinarily people do. But one who attains the highest level of attainment, like morality, is a mental state which does not have a room at all for anything immoral. Ordinary people, they observe morality today, tomorrow they will lose, then they renew and so forth. For enlightened persons, morality is far beyond that, because he never loses any morality. It is purely clear mental state, because he reached morality with full understanding, unlike ordinary people. Ordinary people abstain from various things because of various other mundane reasons. But for an Arahant, he doesn't have any mundane reason. He's gone beyond all of them, and there is no way that immoral thought can be his mind. So his mind is completely blocked to immoral thoughts, words, and deeds. That kind of morality an enlightened person has. He is the one who has uh, put a cap to immorality, close the door.
Bhante, ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Bhante, from a Buddhist or spiritual standpoint, what does the word dualism mean for you? Sorry, non-dualism.
Non-dualism is it is very interesting. Dualism is attita and natita. The whole world it depends on these two extremes, attita and natita. Attita means is, natita means no. Either is or no. But for in the Aryan Vinaya, Arya Vinaya Buddha always use, when one sees rising, then he does not see the notion of no. When he sees passing away, he does not hold to the notion of yes. That means he sees rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling. Therefore, he does not stick to one particular extreme, either is or no. Those who hold on to this view are in duality. This time they say there is something, next time they say there is no something. But for an Aryans, they see something rises and falls, rises and falls, rises and falls. This kind of thing you can see even in your breathing. When you breathe, breath is there. When you don't breathe, when the breath goes out, you don't have breath. So you can see this is not some permanent, established, fixed entity, rising, falling all the time. That is what I mentioned this morning, the flux. So duality exists for those who do not see the flux.
Hmm.
Okay?
Thank you, Bhante.
All right, now we can start practice of metta, and then from there we continue our evening session. So we wind up the machine now. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. With this metta thought, wishing all beings be well, happy, and peaceful, we want to continue our practice. We breathe in and out, noticing inhaling as inhaling, exhaling as exhaling, inhaling and exhaling separate by one tiny little pause. Therefore, we can notice the beginning of inhaling, middle of inhaling, end of inhaling, and a pause. Then the beginning of exhaling, middle of exhaling, and the pause. Now, this pause, beginning, middle, and end happen very naturally. We don't have to deliberately pause and think of the beginning, think of the middle, think of the end, think of the pause, and so forth. Therefore, don't try to stop your breathing and say to yourself, this is the beginning, or this is the middle, this is the end, and so on. As they happen, we just be aware of it without using any words, concepts, and ideas, theories, and so on. Just breathe, and the awareness must flow with the beginning, middle, end, and the pause of each inhaling and exhaling. And then the body, as breath conditions the body, when we pay attention to feeling, we notice the body relaxing, breath relaxing, mind relaxing. We experience also the feeling of breathing, perception of breathing, intention to pay attention to the breath, and consciousness. All these also take place simultaneously with the breath, with the pause, with the beginning, middle, and end. And all this very quickly taking place while we are breathing in and out. Whatever out of all these things should become aware more clearly, and then mind will stay there. And then your hindrances like greed, resentment, sleepiness and drowsiness, restlessness and worry and doubt also at the same time subside, because your mind is very active in watching this very natural phenomenon of rising, falling, and so forth. Then there is no room for hindrances to come and interfere your awareness, because your intention is to gain concentration and cleanse your mind of all impurities, at least for temporarily. And then when the hindrances fade away, you gain concentration. Concentration also becomes very steady, sharp, and clear, so that you can see through with that concentration more clearly your inner subtle deep changes. And Buddha always said concentrated mind can see things as they really are. What are the things? Same body, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness. These are the things, the material, where we see their changes, impermanence. And noticing this, you continue to do this practice for next few minutes. Dukkha pattaja nidukkha, bhaya pattaja nibbhaya, soka pattaja nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all living beings. Friends, this is very true. There are so many suffering beings, so many beings with fear of losing their lives, losing their relatives' lives, friends' lives, parents' lives, spouses' lives, and so forth and so on. They have great sense of insecurity, uncertainty, and fear. And they also have anxiety, worry, and tension. They also lament in pain, grief, because of the loss of very precious lives. At this moment, with our very clear, pure state of mind, we want to wish, may the leaders be wiser to make right choice, right decision out of compassion for all beings. This is the time all beings, human beings, forget all their differences and come together in unison, work together in friendliness, and try as much as they can to help this current unfortunate situation. We know many thousands of very wonderful hearted people, medical professionals, nurses, their assistants, hospitals, welfare workers, social workers, and all those people dedicate their lives. They take great risks to help these people out. And we want to wish all of them to be healthy, safe, and secure, and continue their work, and those victims come out of their sickness and be in their normal life and continue their regular activities, and may they live long in very good health. This is our invocation, our wish. With this wish, we start answering questions if you have any.
Bhante, one question here. Today, when I meditated, I just tried sharing metta with everyone equally. I felt to let self-concept go. However, a thought came up whether this is not self. Why work so hard striving to enlightenment? The meaning of life is I get enlightened. Let the self idea go seems like letting the self idea go seems like hopeless and scared. How can I overcome this holding on? What should I do that during that time in meditation?
That very holding on should be abandoned, and very honestly, with deep insight, see selflessness, and you can be free from fear, anxiety, and worry the moment the fear of self disappears. Fear of self is baseless fear because self does not exist. You have fear of something that does not exist. So many people have fear of not of the death itself, but what can happen before death. Getting seriously sick, see like this COVID-19 makes you so sick that you neither want to live nor do you want to die. That kind of uh, dilemma arises in the mind because it is so painful. If COVID-19 affects somebody and dies immediately, then the person may not have that much agonizing, painful experience. It doesn't happen that way. Therefore, it is not the death itself that, or self itself, or losing self itself that makes people uh, have fear, but the lingering, dragging, long time pain and suffering. Whether you believe in self or not, so long as you have this fear, you have very unhappy life. Once you experienced or see non-self, enduring, permanent, fixed self, and see things are always moving, changing. Death is another moment of change. Everything appears and stays changing and disappears. Appears, stays changing, altering, and disappear. Upada Titi Bhanga. Titi means not static titi, not fixed titi, but moving, changing flux and disappears. So death is one of those three moments. Rising moment, appearing, disappearing moment, and disappearing moment. So when you don't have the notion of permanent, enduring, lasting self, then it will be easier for you to handle the fear of death, fear of losing self. You don't have anything to lose except the fear.
Thank you, Bhante.
You are welcome.
Bhante, the Buddha says to be mindful of the body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. What is the difference between thought and consciousness? And what are these five called?
These five are called five aggregates: thought and consciousness. Thought, the consciousness, it is very interesting. Consciousness arises with everything, including thoughts. Feeling arises with consciousness, perception arises with consciousness, and the thought arises with consciousness. Even only the body you notice with consciousness. Body itself does not have consciousness because it is made up of elements. Elements themselves don't have consciousness. So, difference between thought and consciousness is that consciousness arises only with certain thought. Say, for instance, eye consciousness. You have the thought of eye and the consciousness. Ear consciousness, thought of ear and consciousness. So, consciousness and thought arise together and pass away together. You cannot find consciousness existing by itself. In the meditation for foundations of mindfulness, we see mindfulness of consciousness, mindfulness of mind. There you see Saragan Chittan, the consciousness with greed, you become consciousness with greed. That means this consciousness is with greed. Greed is a thought, mental state, and consciousness arises with the greed. Then non-greed, generosity or letting go is a thought, and consciousness arises with that. Similarly, resentment or anger is a thought. Anger is a thought. Although you feel anger, there is a thought, and consciousness arises with that. So these two are almost inseparable. They come together, exist together, and pass away together. But for explanation, as aggregates, we talk of them separately: consciousness aggregate and thought aggregate. Consciousness, primarily 6 kinds of consciousness: eye consciousness, nose consciousness, and so on. And the thought are various type of thought: wholesome thought, unwholesome thought, and so forth. And any thought, once again I must repeat, any thought arises with consciousness, any consciousness arises with thought. There is no pure consciousness until one becomes enlightened, attain liberation, and Arahant. Then the consciousness is pure and clean, but still it has a wholesomeness in it, the wisdom in it, and compassion is in it. But they don't have underlying tendencies to that carries them to another life. This is called consciousness free from sankhara, visankhara gatan chittam. Oh, so that is the difference between thought and consciousness.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, you explained the effects of Bojjhanga Sutta and Ratna Sutta towards disease prevention and healing. Can you please explain the effects of Grimanada Sutta as well?
Girimananda Sutta also is recited for Venerable Girimananda. When Venerable Ananda came and reported to the Buddha that Venerable Girimananda was sick, then Buddha asked Venerable Ananda to go and recite this discourse, which gives 10 type of perceptions. Perception of, they are called anicca sanya, anatta sanya, asubha sanya, adina sanya, pahana sanya, viraga sanya, nirodha sanya, sabbaloke anuvira sanya, sabbhasankara anicca sanya, anapana sati. To translate into English is anicca sanya, perception of impermanence; anatta sanya, perception of non-existence of self; adina sanya, perception of danger; asubha sanya, perception of impurities; pahana sanya, perception of abandoning; viraga sanya, perception of non-clinging; nirodha sanya, perception of cessation; sabbaloke anubhirata sanya, perception of non-attachment, attaching to anything in the world; sabbha sankharis anicca sanya, seeing impermanence of all sankharas; and anapana sati. Anapana sati also in that discourse is listed as perception. So when one sees these perceptions, one would see them arising and passing away. anicca sanya, anatta sanya, non-existence, asubha sanya, impurities. In all these perceptions, the person would see the changes. And then as the mind lodged, engaged in these perceptions, the pain in the body will be forgotten. The person may not remember the pain. Because the person, even though there is pain, the person is so deeply concentrating on the perceptions, and then pain will be forgotten. And then mind becomes very calm, relaxed, peaceful, and he get better. I think this has a very powerful psychological effect. When the mind is calm, peaceful, it helps the healing process and accelerate the healing process, because the calm, peaceful state of mind generate very wholesome, positive hormones which helps the body to recover from diseases. That is what many arahants did when they were very sick. Okay, that is how Girimananda Sutta works. Okay? Any other question?
There's one here.
Mm-hmm.
Bhante, regarding the Dhammapada verse below, how do we protect the mind? So hard to see, so very, very subtle. It says alighting, maybe delighting wherever it likes. The mind, the wise should guard it. The mind protected brings happiness. So this person is asking, how can we protect the mind?
Yes. Protect the mind by being mindful. When we mindful, we prevent unwholesome, unnourishing, unwholesome mental state from arising. We prevent it, we stop it. Wholesome, when we guard the mind, when unwholesome state arises, we immediately become mindful and let it go. And then we guard the mind when mind has wholesome mentals, try to protect it, keep it, develop it, cultivate, multiply wholesome mental state. That is how we guard our mind, especially against unwholesome evil tendencies to tell lies, steal, and so forth. These are very natural tendencies in some individuals' minds, and therefore when they guard the mind, they stop these tendencies arising in their mind. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante.
Suduttarang sunnipunang yattagama nipatanang chitta sadamato sadhu chittang guttam sukhavang is the Dhammapada stanza in the Chitta Vagga. That is the translation you gave there. Sududdasang sunipunang yattakava nipatanang chittang dhammato sadhu chittang guttam sukava. Okay? Any other question?
I have one.
What is that?
If my memory is serving me, the fourth foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of Dhammas.
Mm-hmm.
Could you define what that means?
Mindfulness mindfulness of Dhamma, there are 5 categories of mindfulness of Dhamma in Satipatthana Sutta. The first category is mindfulness of hindrances. Hindrances are, although we call them thought, defilements, but they are thoughts, mental states. So we become mindful of them. The discourse says that Santang Vajjatang Kamachandang Attime, there are 5 steps. Santang Vajjatang Kamachandang Attime Ajjatang Kamachandang Pajana. When desire is in the mind, one knows that desire is there. When desire is not in the mind, one would become aware of the fact that there is no desire in the mind. Then when the desire, unreasoned desire arises, he becomes, this desire was not there before, now it is arisen. When that desire is desire disappears, he becomes aware of the disappearance of that desire. And then he becomes aware of disappeared desire does not arise again. Pahinang was kamachandang, I think anupado tancha pajanati. We recite in Pali, and that is the meaning. So, hindrances are dhammas. All mental states are dhammas. Thought are dhammas. Everything that is part of that it becomes a mental object is called dhamma. So therefore, the word dhamma has many meanings. These are the dhammas that we learn from the qualities of the dhamma, pacha, sandittika, akalika, ehipasika, pachatang vetabha, swakhata. These 6 qualities of the dhamma you can see in hindrances. For instance, in these 5 hindrances, when hindrances arises in the mind, one knows that hindrances is arisen. When hindrance arises in the mind, we know that hindrance blocks my vision, and it confuses my mind, and therefore he experiences it by himself, and he does not learn it from somebody, from books, but from paying attention to the hindrances in the mind. At that time he knows how unwholesome, how beneficial, how dangerous it is, how it makes himself unhappy and so forth. So seeing the hindrances, seeing its impact, what it does and so forth, he sees by himself in his own mind. This is pacchatang vetabbo. Wise individual sees it by himself or herself. Every mental state we experience, and we know what it is, how it works, and how it disappears and so forth. When it is present, what we experience, when we absent, when it is not present, when it is absent, we experience something different that we all know. And therefore, all these dhammas are mental states. All these dhammas appear in our mind, and we become aware of it. And therefore, the word dhamma is a very broad term that means the all mental states, all mental objects are called dhamma.
And I'm hesitant to ask Bhante, but I thought you said there were 5 categories, and you mentioned hindrances as being one?
Yes, hindrances, 5 aggregates, and then 6 senses, and fetters arising 6 senses, and the bojjhangas, and the Four Noble Truths. These are the 5 categories.
What's the bojjhangas?
Bojjhanga factors of enlightenment.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. and the last is Four Noble Truths.
Fact.
Okay.
Ready to wind down?
Now we want to wind down, and thank you very much. So many people came to meditate together with us, and we want to wish you all good night, and keep in mind metta, and go to bed with metta, and think of all these suffering beings and wish them all to be free from suffering. Good night.
Thank you, Bhante.
Bhante, sadhu, sadhu.
Bhante, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Love you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you very much,
Very
Bhante.
well.
Hi, Bhante and Brian.
Sadhu, Bhante.